What do you guys think is the state of the current job market overall?
Wow.
It's a broad question, but what do you think?
Well, overall, it is at the beginning of a recovery, and beginnings are always rocky. And I think if you look at the last 2 months, I happen to be living in hotels on both First Fridays of the month, and I stayed over till Saturday. And in New York, no, in Connecticut, last month, when I picked up the Wall Street Journal on Saturday, the weekend edition, the headline was something to the effect of job market, erupts, explodes with positive force. It was definitely that flavor of a headline. Last weekend in Manhattan, when I picked up the Saturday Wall Street Journal, it said, "Economy, job market comes to a screeching halt." I think we have a tendency in the media to overreact to monthly numbers. I really do. I equate it to when you build a house, you're counting the nails that you use. Probably the wrong frequency to measure progress, right? It seems to me that another way to look at this most recent number of 50,000 jobs added is that it wasn't that long ago when 50,000 jobs were lost, and that would have been a good month.
Right.
So the fact that jobs are being added is good. It would have been better to be 250 or 350,000. The answer is, of course, it would. Is it tolling a bell of, oh my God, the rush to create jobs is over? Probably not. No more than creating 240,000, I think it was, in April, was the beginning of a massive upswing, right? So, I think patience is required here. It's fragile. To me, the best word is fragile. As someone who has a company who doesn't get hired unless clients are hiring, this year is way better than last year. Right. One of the indicators we use as sort of an early warning bell is that the search firms, the search industry, everyone I know in the search industry, and hopefully it's true for Mitch as well, is reporting that they're seeing a big uptick compared to this time last year in their suite of business and the number of assignments and the number of assignments that are actually getting completed. Usually executive hiring precedes other growth that comes in companies. So I don't think it's the same market that we had in 04, 05 coming out of the last recession. It's possible that there's a group of people who are kind of at mid-level management who will have a very difficult time recapturing those positions because they've been eliminated perhaps forever. That group of people needs to reinvent themselves, and that's probably a whole different discussion, right? But but in getting back to the question, what's the state of the job market? It's beginning to recover. It's still a little rocky, and it will be a little bumpy through the summer. Hopefully, my crystal ball is broken, but my guess would be by the time we get to the fall, there'll be a little more steady additive effect of jobs. The big thing is the uncertainty in regulation, the uncertainty in geopolitical requirement, the uncertainty in handling national debt are the things that are holding back growth right now. And those things have to be dealt with before job creation really gets going full steam.
Yeah, to me, I think a lot of people are expecting, or they certainly want, that same type of recovery that we had the last time. Yeah. And I just think this one's going to look differently.
Well, I think so too. I think we had a confluence of factors that aren't going to be repeated here. But I would echo a fair amount of what Harry said, in that I think we are in a recovery period. I think it's a slow recovery. It's very spotty and uneven. Our simple measures tend to be how many positions do our typical candidates get to look at before they take a job, and they're up from about 1 a year to a year and a half ago to 2 or more now. We also look at how much time does it really take to generate those opportunities, and that's down about a month. For us, it's probably down from about 7 months to about 6 months right now. And while that's not scientific, because every client is a little bit different, but in the aggregate it's down some. As Harry intimated, it's very uneven too, depending on industry. So in this, in the Mid-Atlantic, for example, you probably don't want to be in the pharmaceutical market right at the moment because there's been a lot of consolidation and there isn't a lot of hiring. On the other hand, remarkably, financial services has been robust. We were talking earlier that manufacturing seems to be up, probably not at the levels it was 4 or 5 years ago, but better than it was for the past 2 years. Services businesses in general are up. Companies that have a global footprint tend to be up. Consumer products companies tend to be doing pretty well. Clearly some sectors could be doing better, but other sectors are doing quite well. So, your view of the economy may also be based on what sector do I find myself in, and that gets to the question that you were talking about before, Gary, which is, can you reinvent yourself and move into another part of the economy, another industry, another segment of an industry that's growing a little bit faster? Healthcare, because there's so much money flowing into it, is robust these days in certain areas of healthcare. Maybe not insurance companies, but in medical devices, in nursing homes, in-home patient care is growing rather rapidly, partly because of the new economics of healthcare. So I'd say that we're seeing an economy that, while bumpy, as I said, has really been, in a secular fashion, moving ahead pretty nicely. And I would agree with Harry that you can't look at monthly statistics and then draw a conclusion. Nobody ever does. When we all took statistics in college, we were told, don't do that. But people do react to them. And there's one indicator that I've always looked at over the years that I thought was really a powerful indicator, which is the University of Michigan Consumer Confidence Index. And I think that tends to be a fairly good indicator of where the consumer segment is, and often that ultimately drives the business sector. If consumers are spending, then business tends to invest. That's been generally up, although, again, on a monthly basis it was down a bit, but on a secular basis it's been looking pretty good. But I would also, I think Harry said this well, better than perhaps some of our more noted economists did, that there's a lot of uncertainty out there with the debt issue, for example, or where taxes are, or regulation. I mean, we've seen thousands of pages of regulation in the last couple of years. That's a robust industry, government regulation. If you could monetize it, we'd all be very, very wealthy. But it does create issues with companies as they try to figure out the regulations and deal with the regulatory bodies about what does this really mean and what can I do and what can't I do. So if some of the overhang issues get resolved, I think we'll see further acceleration in business activity.
I think there's a segment of the economy that or the job market that a lot of people don't consider, and that's where we sit in the temporary staffing arena. Yeah. And that's becoming more and more popular at all levels. And it's not just an administrative assistant or a receptionist anymore. It's to the C-suite that's happening there. And I know that staffing industry analysts had reported the first quarter was up. I think it was from $50 billion in 2010 to $57 billion in revenues in 2011. So it's almost, I think it's a 13% increase. And we've noticed that in talking with a lot of my colleagues and so forth as we go to some of the functions and conventions and so forth. And the attendance is way up there, and the outlook is much different. And that's good for our business, but I think a lot of people could look at that as a possible, even if it's a short-term option for them to do some things that way. A lot of people don't consider that as a viable option for employment, and I think that's changing.